Good morning. Hello, and welcome to Thriving Through Transformation in a Tough Market. I'm Kayla Scott, owner and CEO of Market Share PR, and I'm excited to be your host for today's installment of the CBIA PCBC webinar series. The California Building Industry Association owns PCBC, the premier home building conference for the West Coast. If you've attended PCBC, you know it's where the industry's top leaders and innovators gather to explore the future of home building, share best practices, and build powerful connections. The CBIA PCBC webinar series extends that same spirit of collaboration and forward thinking throughout the year, which brings you timely insights and conversations that help you navigate the evolving market. So before we dive in today, just a few quick housekeeping notes. We are recording this webinar and we will send you the recording after. You will also please submit your questions through the Q&A down below instead of the chat. And now our panelists will discuss how technology and data discipline can be used together to build resilience and precision. Today, you're going to gain some insights for responding strategically to high mortgage rates and affordability pressures, investing in digital transformation during downturns, driving smarter decisions through consistent system adoption and unified data practices, using data for predictive planning, building cross-functional buy-in, and leading through uncertainty. I'm pleased to introduce you to your speakers today. First, we have John McManus, who founded The Builders Daily in 2021 with a mission to empower home building senior executives to achieve sustained high performance by connecting them with best practices, solutions, and tools that drive operational efficiency, leadership excellence, and customer satisfaction. We also have Brandon Sharp, who is Chief Information Officer, a CBIA board member, and a Brookfield Residential. Brandon is responsible for developing and executing the company's overall IT strategy, overseeing the technology platforms and innovation, and ensuring data strategies empower data-driven decision-making across the North American operating footprint. Then we have Bob Swainhart, Vice President of Enterprise Solutions Group at Constellation HomeBuilder Systems. He brings deep industry experience in home building software, guiding customers through every stage of their journey from initial sale to full system adoption. Everybody, enjoy.
Thank you, Kayla. I'm John McManus. A big thanks to PCBC, Kayla, and our team behind the scenes, especially Penny, for curating this urgent and strategic discussion. As Kayla mentioned, we've got two sharp voices from opposite ends of the home building technology spectrum, both of whom are deeply embedded in helping home builders solve today's most pressing challenges, Brandon and Bob. Now let's level set on what we mean by a tough market. According to the NHB, Wells Fargo market okay. They're seeking resilience, efficiency, and clarity, and they're looking to digital systems and data discipline as tools to build that muscle. So today's session explores exactly that. How do you thrive, not just survive, in a market like this? What investments, leadership practices, and cultural commitments turn this moment into a strategic advance? We'll break our discussion into 4 themes. Market pressures and strategic response is number 1. Digital transformation and data discipline. Leadership and change management, and then we'll go to key takeaways and some live Q&A. I'll guide the conversation and pose some questions, but please, as Kayla mentioned, use the Q&A panel throughout and to submit your own. We'll get to as many as we can near the end. Now let's begin by framing what really is going on out there. Brandon, Bob, we know the headlines: affordability, stress, capital tightening, and unpredictable buyer behavior. But what's the less visible story, the real world impact on strategy, your priorities, and builder mindset in 2025? So Brandon, can you kick us off at Brookfield Residential? How are you making sense of this moment? What's changed in how you prioritize investments and commitments across the enterprise? And what are the most important signals you're watching for right now? Demand signals, capital signals, buyer behavior trends.
Yeah, thanks, John. Hi, everybody. I think Brookfield Residential is sort of on this constant journey around empowerment around systems and data. And so this moment, while it presents its challenges in the market, as you mentioned, John, I think for us it is just an opportunity to continue to refine what we've already been putting in place over the last many years, and getting razor focused in certain areas that are the levers you have to pull on differently at different times of the cycle. So at the moment, paying close attention to what's happening with pricing and what's happening with incentives that might need to be offered to engage a customer and get the commitment from the customer to purchase a home. Pressures from trades and availability of trades and costing pressures that we might observe in our home costs, or opportunities to go re-engineer our product or re-engineer a process to take advantage of cost savings or cycle time improvement opportunities. So I think for us, it's not necessarily something that's new to us. We've been perfecting this method for a while now. It just is, at the moment, there's certain things that you focus on that are more important than other moments in time.
Yes, so you started the commitments years ago, and what it sounds as if I'm hearing is that those commitments and the investment in them continues, it evolves, it sort of takes signals from the marketplace and then directs itself to respond to those. Is that right?
That's right. It's a multi-year journey of laying that foundational layer of applications and data warehousing, and building, as you mentioned, the data management muscle that's necessary for an organization to thrive around their consumption of and their use of data, and then how to turn that data into really rich environments of deep insights, things that we can now see in our business by the minute, practically, that just a few short years ago we weren't able to see the same way. And having that visibility and having the trust in our systems environment, and having the trust in our data management requirements, if you will, and having that credibility in the information systems that we've built, allows us to do some really interesting things. And so, yeah, it's a number of years of effort to get to where we've now landed, but it's a work in process, right? Every day there's something new that we continue to innovate on and continue to evolve. But it has to start somewhere, and it starts with that foundational layer of systems and data management discipline.
Right. And Bob Swainhart, Constellation HomeBuilder Systems, has been working with Brookfield Residential and Brandon's team for some time, but we'll get to that. But Bob, will you take a minute and tell us, what dominant patterns you're seeing among home builders across the board these days, in behavioral responses? What is the slowdown, the challenges created in terms of the workplace ethic out there? Bob?
There goes Bob.
You're on mute, Bob. There we go.
There. I got kicked out, so I didn't hear the question.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll get to how you and Brandon are working together in a bit, but can you just talk in a broader way in terms of what you're seeing, the patterns you're seeing among builders and their behavior and their response to some of the challenges they've been encountering?
Yeah, so I was privy at Focus on Excellence recently to an economist speak about what's happening in the environment, what's happening not only now, but anticipating what's coming. And there's no silver bullet coming. Like, there's no magical transformation that appears to be coming in a few weeks. And so we're in this we're in this reality for the long term. We've got to prepare, I would say at least for the next year and a half, for sales to be choppy and for margin pressures to be a reality. And so I think, our builders, and we're hearing that they're making decisions with the long-term reality in mind. And I think that fundamentally, to really prepare yourself, you better have some very good insight, strong insight into what's actually happening in your business. And that starts with good systems, good adoption within your organization, so that the data that those systems provides allows you to, I guess, trust what you're seeing, so that when you make those decisions, it's based on something that you have a high level of confidence in. And and so that that begins essentially with a discipline. And Brandon mentioned it at Brookfield Residential. It's been a years-long journey, but it starts with this idea that we're going to rely on quality system-driven data, which is going to allow us to make strong decisions for our business. As an industry, you can go builder to builder and see varying degrees of data quality. I would say overall, it's probably pretty poor. And so one of the messages that we have with our customers is you should empower your end users. System use should not be optional, so that ultimately the leadership team can begin to rely on, excuse me, the data that the system delivers to proactively manage their business day to day. And if you're making decisions about the business in an environment where there's shrinking margins, sales are compromised, every dollar you spend is scrutinized, you better have good data. And so it's this
Oop, there goes Bob.
a discipline for the organization.
John, I was just going to add one thought there. While Bob represents Constellation HomeBuilder Systems, and they happen to be our partner, I've had opportunities like this at other conferences or recent events, and one of the things I always try to point out is that success around data and systems and information insights, it's less about the system you're on, and more about how the operation embraces the importance of managing high quality data. The what's in it for me type of obstacle that you sometimes run into, in order to achieve really interesting insights and great metrics and great reporting and great predictability in your business through systems, some individual user of the system might feel less empowered because they'd prefer to use their spreadsheet, or they'd prefer to use the old system that you just took me off of. And that's a real human emotion. I don't like change, and I'm having to do something that feels unnatural to me by putting it in this platform instead of my spreadsheet. But that individual user who might feel less empowered, if they adopt and embrace the importance of managing the system the way we've intended, the way we've structured, and the way we've planned for, the rest of the organization ends up wildly empowered because of the efforts of that one individual or a series of individuals. And so while that one individual may not feel as empowered, if they step back from themselves for a second and think about the broader impact on the organization. If I do this thing the way I've been asked to through this system, the way I've been trained to, the rest of the organization really gets a great deal of benefit from it. And so lean in and embrace the importance of using systems the way they've been intended to be used.
Yes, I think that value creation at the individual and at the across the value chain, and the change management and leadership issues related to that is very important, and we'll come back to that. Bob, I just would love to hear a little bit more in terms of the you were on to some points about the caveats not to delay taking care of some of these issues, and yet we're in a marketplace that's sort of in a throes of dislocation and turbulence and volatility and uncertainty. Do you find that builders are more apt to listen to you and to understand from your team that moving sooner into securing this capability is better than waiting it out, or trying to manage costs and expenses to a better day and then start the process? So what are you hearing about that note of caution versus moving ahead with what's going to be a commitment?
And I just want to, but before I directly answer that, I just want to support something that Brandon said. I represent a technology company, and Brandon made some great points about it's not really the system, it's really around the discipline. And I just want to support that with some factual data. There was a study done 15 years or so ago that looked at successful software implementations, and without getting had nothing to do with the software itself. It had to do with the fact that the users were empowered so that the leadership team can rely on the data in the system. And so anyways, the idea is that you've got to empower your users to ultimately drive success in that system. So back to the question, what am I seeing today in the marketplace? There is hesitancy. It's very difficult to have conversations with people when times are slow and you're being asked to spend money to empower your to empower your employees, to spend money on training, to adopt new technologies. It is a dilemma for the builders, but as we know, this looks like it looks like he's it looks like we're going to be in this environment for a long time, which means you're going to most likely require that your end users do more with less. Like, you're going to probably potentially have fewer people to be working on things in your organization. If that's your reality, you need to have systems that allow them to become more efficient. And so now is the time to lean into technology to drive the efficiencies.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is strategy, both from Brandon and Bob right now. Strategy is not when should you plant a tree? 40 years ago is the ideal time, but so you have to start. The next best thing is today to do it. So Is that how to kind of appreciate where you
We're recorded again.
Okay. So,
Yeah.
but let's shift now to the work of turning that strategy into action. If the past decade or so has been about digitizing, putting systems in place, this moment is starting to feel like a reckoning. Are those systems actually helping or hindering how we operate in real time? So, Brandon, you've described Brookfield Residential's transformation as a journey to align systems with how homes are actually built. What's changed culturally in how your teams use the data?
Oh man. I would say, I guess the way I would summarize it was when I first joined Brookfield Residential with Adrian Foley back in May of 2018. I think he and I had a discussion that went something like this. We're an outstanding community developer. We have a high level of competency and expertise around development in many areas of the market. We are a great home builder. We have great product design. We care about our customer. We provide great customer experiences. We're also going to be a great data management company. The conversation went something like that. So I think for us, it's become a bit of a spiritual belief system around the importance of the data. And I can tell you, and it starts at the top. Executive sponsorship is critically important for any organization that's thinking about starting today. To John's point, if you haven't started 40 years ago, if you're starting today, executive sponsorship is key. Having a leader, as we have with Adrian Foley, who really is a believer in the importance of data. He expects great things from the organization, and in turn, he expects great things from the IT organization for how we deploy systems, how we support our users, how we produce great insights, and he's always pushing us for more and more and more. So the journey never ends. So for us, the cultural transition that started really in 2018. At the time, we were a sort of a fragmented IT department. We had 9 IT departments supporting the North American footprint, and we still do have this cultural belief system around entrepreneurship. Some would call it autonomy. We tend to call it entrepreneurship, but in the local markets, we empower our local leaders greatly. But at the point when it comes to the keyboard and the systems we use and how we want to think about the enrichment of data, you can't have a fragmented environment the way we were experiencing prior to 2018. So the unification of systems, the unification of the department, the executive sponsorship coming directly from Adrian Foley, this was important to him, and we were going to go execute quickly. Yeah, I think it's been for us it's deeply embedded in our culture now. And again, we're nowhere near perfected. We've got plenty of room to go on our housing operation. We've got even further to go maybe on our land operation. It's a work in process. Every day there is something that we're realizing we aren't quite on top of, or this thing that Adrian wants to have visibility to that we just don't yet have the ability to produce for him. We're continuing to evolve now, in the AI era, if you will, or the AI hype cycle that we're living in, whichever way you want to think of it. It is going to be present in our life, and it is going to be present in how we do our work, and how can we harness the power of the tools and the capabilities that now exist to help make the organization even smarter? How can we get them to information more quickly? How can we allow our users to converse with our data more effectively and get responses from our data? How can we process automate something that allows some end user or a series of end users to be more efficient in where they spend their time and their focus? So as everybody is, we're all trying to figure out sort of what are we doing with AI? We're experimenting with things, we're trying things out. But that's just one example of where the journey never ends. We continue to build that culture more deeply day by day. And so for us, we think it's a differentiator for us. We think it makes a difference in how we see the business. And we think it makes us a better, smarter, faster, more insightful organization, and our executive team is more equipped to make strategic decisions more quickly.
Can you track back a little bit and help us understand how you were looking at wins when you first started to appreciate them in making this commitment, Brandon, and then how those successes or wins across your organization start to materialize into ROI that you're describing now?
Yeah, so I guess success breeds success is one way to frame it. I think I've said that recently. When we started the journey, it was very uh, it was very out of the ordinary for us to push the organization forward as quickly as we were setting out to accomplish. Um, we tended to be, a lot more consensus taking, collaborative, if you will, but a very friendly culture. Not that we have become something other than that. We certainly still are. But there was a bit of we had to go quickly. And when you light that match and you have the right sponsorship and you've got the right commitment of capital and you've got the right conviction to accomplish great things, there's a little bit more push that needs to occur. And so there was a little bit less asking questions and getting consensus, and a little bit more, here's what we're doing, and please pay attention because we're going to train you and we need you to come on board with us. But it was a bit of storytelling from the very beginning. It was, the way I've characterized it is, and I think maybe I did read this in a book at some point, but it's the journey of setting expectations. So tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them, and then tell them what you told them. So the telling them what you're going to tell them is setting the stage for why this is important, telling the organization what to expect. Telling them then in that second stage of delivery is really delivering on those early wins. So what can we do quickly that demonstrates the importance of this journey that we're on and the value that we will get as an organization out of this really intense effort? Because it takes a village, right? This is not something the IT department does in a vacuum. This is something that executive leadership and operational leaders and local leaders and people who aren't in positions of leadership, who just are team members who have to use the keyboard every day to do their job, they have to feel and sense some of the successes and the fruits of their labor, if you will. And so that's the tell them stage. Demonstrate those wins, and then tell them what you told them. It's the report back and reinform everybody that this is the journey we said we were going to go on. These are the things we said we were going to accomplish. These are the things we have accomplished, and look at what a better organization we are now today because of those efforts. So let's keep going. So tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. And so measure the wins quickly. On the ROI topic, I don't know, I'm a non-conformist maybe in this respect. I certainly understand, as a finance guy, by the way, I'm a recovering accountant, CIO on television is the way I say it out loud. So I understand ROI and I understand the math behind ROI, and I can paint you a numerator that makes you feel good, and I can definitely give you the denominator. I know what the costs of doing this thing ended up being. What's the numerator? I don't know. I'll make something up for you. Systems transformations are challenging because did we sell more homes because of the tech? Did we sell more option revenue because of the tech? Did we build homes faster because of the tech? I don't know. Maybe we sold more homes because buyers showed up more, because the market got better, or because they felt better about their jobs. Did we sell more options because of the tech? I don't know. People probably had better ability to borrow more money and they bought more options. Maybe that could be an option also. So justifying investment in technology when your finance leaders, who I know them dearly, when finance leaders drive for ROI on an investment in technology, there's not always a clear numerator that you can point to that says it was worth it. So do we spiritually believe in the importance of this transformation, and do we think it's going to give us a lot more empowerment to be a better organization? Let's make the decision to do this thing because we just know naturally it feels like the right thing to do. Whether I can measure it in a real ROI or not, I don't know. So anyway, that's my story.
Yeah. So Bob, Brendan's talking about the sense of gains and successes, and increased accountability across the team and that sort of thing. But through the lens of looking at a lot of organizations that Constellation has, what are some of the other barriers that builders face in getting to that real-time life cycle wide data clarity?
Yeah, so I would suggest that builders, when sales are good, make a lot of money. And is there going to be an incremental sale, as Brandon just hinted at? We don't know. I think there's been since I came into the industry in '99, there's been a reputation that home builders are slow to adopt technology. I think if you look at the modern home builder today, it's pretty impressive. Like they've got, information on the website that used to only be available in the back office system. And so it never left the walls of the office. Superintendents didn't have email addresses. Sales agents didn't have email addresses. And now all of a sudden, there's a manifestation of a home plan, standards, options, and upgrades on an iPad in the living room of a potential home buyer at 10 o'clock at night. That's driven out of your system data. And so this goes back to this idea that you better have good system data because now it's showing up on somebody's website, right? And so I applaud the industry that since COVID, which really forced a significant amount of digital transformation, adoption of new technologies very, very quickly. I applaud the industry for adopting that, and they're continuing to look for new ways to make their organizations more efficient. It is a drumbeat that has to go on. I mean, every day we're having that conversation with our customers that, this will make you more efficient. This is the right thing to do. And I think also the reality is that today's home buyer, there's an expectation. Brandon talked about culturally, is this the right thing for our company to do? Do we know inside that making these changes is going to benefit us in the long run? And if you lay that kind of thought process over the customer experience, the reality is that today's customer is not cool with driving down the road looking for an open house sign or a model home sign that's 3 feet off the ground in the grass on the side of the road and has an arrow that points them, to your model home somewhere. And that's how they end up buying a home. That doesn't work anymore, right? It's got to be real data available to them with a visual manifestation in many cases, whether or not that's photographs or 3D model walkthroughs, et cetera. Those things take commitment from an organization and a mindset to improve the customer experience, to meet the customer where they want to be met, which is on a mobile device at 10 o'clock at night in their living room.
Which, by the way, Bob, as you've seen throughout your years in the industry, it's very hard to pull off elegantly some of that digital transparency for customers to be more empowered with information about the homes they're looking at or inspired by sitting on their couch at night. It's very hard. And even for Brookfield Residential, when we have a very, very high quality mountain of data, and even in some of our efforts to really do some elevated customer facing digital experiences, you start to see where some of the problems in your own data are, and where that inconsistency in data management or that local flavor on still high quality data, but it became localized in nature to some extent, but we're expecting it to look a certain way, but we're trying to build this enterprise approach to digital transparency for the customer. It's hard to get right. And so you end up with marketing teams that are overburdened because they've got this new thing that they have to manage. They're managing content for the website. They're managing content for their digital kiosks. They're managing content in multiple places. And many builders have the scale and size and IT budgets that a Brookfield Residential does. Certainly there's companies larger, but a lot of companies, they don't have the IT infrastructure. They don't have the budgets necessarily or the ability to commit that amount of capital to go get that technology right. And so you end up with really inefficient processes to deliver some really value add experience for the customers, but it became really inefficient because they didn't have the opportunity to tech enable it from the starting point of a high quality environment.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I think just to briefly say that, broadens the kind of the scope of this conversation is pick pick your technology partners carefully. Make sure that they're empowered to be able to do or their capabilities include the things that you need them to be able to do to effectively deliver on the ideas that we're talking about.
Yes, and I want to sort of bring it to the point where we're getting at a home builder, an operator that is really in the throes of this moment of as to whether they commit to this kind of investment or hold off. And I'm going to just take a couple of the questions that came in to help bring it into the real world for both of you to respond to. One of them says, the skill set of an end user is usually a trade person who works more hands-on. The end user who is skilled at data entry and data tracking is usually less in touch with the job site realities and hands-on work where the real information lies. How do you marry the two without paying for a whole new skill set in a new data tracking employee while paying for the actual work? So this is the kind of real world conflict that for resource and expense allocation and that sort of thing, the operators are having to work with today. So could you sort of talk through that marriage, the job site realities versus the data, and how you start to rationalize making those resource commitments? Brandon wants.
Brandon, you want to take a stab at it?
Yeah, sure. I'll take a stab at it. So it's a great question. Thank you for the question. I think some of that is rooted in, as Bob mentioned, the platform partners that you choose. And it's enabling the field with the right tools and technologies that still allow them to perform their day job, which is managing customer care or managing construction or managing the sales offices. But they're enabled with tools that help capture the important information that drives other processes through the organization or creates enhanced visibility. And it might be an also. So you try to layer in the technology where it can be part of their work product, part of their expectations for performing their job. I agree, though, with the sentiment, which is if the field, as an end user population, if you will, if the field is not empowered with a tool that accomplishes the key data strategies of the company, if the field doesn't have that empowerment, then having people in the back office who you've invested in, who just become data managers, that's a way to solve it, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's the best way to solve it. They are disconnected if you sort of approach it that way. They're disconnected from the business process. They're disconnected from the business. So for us, deploying technology as far out to the edge as we can, and having the back office responsible for the management of master data or things that really are critical to the functioning of the rest of the systems. The back office team members, whether they're in accounting and finance or they're in purchasing or sales administration, those groups are responsible for managing the jumping off point, if you will, how we create projects, how we create companies for the accountants to report against, how we create lots and phases within projects, what have you. The back office has to really understand the importance of getting that data right, because it sets the foundation for everything else that's going to happen, whether you're talking about a deployed sales system or a deployed construction management system or a customer care service request system. All those other systems are tangential to the core and the brains of the operation, if you will, your core ERP. And so I wouldn't necessarily, my default wouldn't be to hire people in the back office to manage field related data, but hiring the right people in the back office who care about the importance of starting the data the right way and creating the cycle of information that then with other systems gets deployed out to the field where the business is actually occurring.
Yeah, John, and let me just build on this real quick, because I think this is an important point. So theoretically, you've got back office users and they're managing data of some variety. and you got a community that's maybe 30 miles away from that office, and you got field users who see what's actually happening, right? Historically, that field user has no clue unless he carried a paper copy of what the actual purchase order was for, what's going into this specific house. Let's just say kitchen cabinets or whatever. They're also managing through paper, change orders, option upgrades, etc. And so it's really in today's modern kind of technology platform is I'm building the information that is required for us to create budgets, purchase orders, distribute them to the vendors, etc. And that system provides real-time availability of all of that data to not only, the trades, but also to the people in the field. And then the people in the field have access to real-time, strong information that then they can react to and say, oh, the material takeoff is wrong on this. I need extra 2x4s, and they create a variance purchase order. But having these aligned systems allows data to be shared, not only from the back office, as also out into the field. And then when the field is making decisions, this window order was delivered and is approved for payment. The field information gets automatically sent to the back office, and that back office person now knows that purchase order for those windows can be paid. Like, it is the collaboration of this data that exists, starts in accounting maybe, and ultimately goes through post-closing to warranty, but you're all sharing the same source of truth, so that the data is being collaborated around by all interested parties in the entire build cycle.
Yeah, I mean, so what's striking here is the digital transformation isn't necessarily about the tools, as Brandon has mentioned. It's about rethinking how people and process and platforms connect and redirect. And when those connections work, we see smarter decisions, better decisions through the value cycle. Now, let's go across to the leadership and change management kind of macro issues. We know that digital maturity is not necessarily from the CEO mandate, but it takes support, it takes intentional leadership, and sometimes radical rethinking of legacy habits. So, Brandon, what did you need to unlearn as a leader to help your teams build new muscle memory around change?
Oh boy. What did I have to unlearn? I guess the one thing that comes to mind is every company has its own DNA. And so a formula that might work for change management or organizational transformation around systems and data, it may not translate from one company to the next without pausing for at least a quick second and surveying the landscape, understanding the executive team, understanding the executive mandate, understanding the appetite for the organization might have at that moment in time for transformation. So again, going back to 2018, 2019, 2020, strong appetite, strong executive leader who knew what the end of the book needed to look like. I had a vision for how to fulfill the 5-year script that Adrian and I sort of wrote together, if you will. And we had a commitment of capital and a strong conviction, and we had clarity on what we're going to do, conviction, clarity, capital. And so I think the unlearning is, as you think about transformation in your own company, you do have to sort of understand the pulse of the company at a moment in time, and then being sensitive to, which, I've been accused of maybe not being as sensitive to it as I could be, but being sensitive to the shifting nature of that pulse and that DNA, because companies do reach transformation fatigue and exhaustion. And we went hard and we went fast and we climbed huge mountains from 2019 to 2020. We didn't stop. We kept going in 2021, 2022. We finished implementations during the early days of COVID. We kept driving on organizational transformation and new systems and new digital and pricing transparency on the website. And oh, by the way, we're going to go kick off our FP&A platform implementation project. So we just keep going. We have this insatiable appetite for transformation and improvement. But at some point, the organization does reserve the right to raise their hand and say, Uncle, hold on a second. Let us catch our breath. Let us get our feet under us. Can we pause? Can we take a 6-month hiatus on new stuff? And let's come back around and do some more transforming later. So I think that's the lesson, the unlearning old habits on how you drive transformation, being sensitive to what is needed at a moment in time within your organization.
And how did you approach the sequence? I mean, we're talking literally about, multiple workflows.
Yeah.
How did you sequence which initiatives, which teams you would involve in this process, from the start?
Yeah, I think for us, we sort of had that mandate that was, we got to get everybody transformed on all systems as quickly as possible. So we didn't sequence per se the core operating platforms. So the core ERP, the core selling system, the CRM that interacts with the selling system, the vertical construction field management platform, the horizontal budget management platform. We sort of did all of that as a bundle as quickly as we could. Some of the sequencing, though, was in parallel. We're building the data warehouse. And even though all of our old systems may not be as highly credible as the data will be once we get everybody on the new systems, they were sources of information for us. And we would build the data warehouse, and we would build our first series of reports, and we would expose information in whatever quality it existed in. We would expose it to the organization and say, here's the story that the data is telling us. Now let's go refine your business processes to make sure that that data that's showing up in that report that's not telling a proper story of your organization, let's go fix that process. Let's get better data the next time. So the sequencing was the entire application stack to run the entire land and housing business, the building of the data warehouse and deploying of an information reporting environment, which had to be perfected over many years, call it, 3 to 4 years of stability and maturity, which then put us in a position in 2021, 2022, 2023 to be doing some of the bigger things that were on the 5-year script back from 2018. It just was going to take time to get there. The dynamic financial planning platform that lives all the time across every housing asset. You can't really achieve something like that if you don't have many years of high quality data captured and that's credible. Pricing transparency on the website, enabling digital experiences for the customer with pricing transparency and floor plan configurators and structural option choosers and 3D visuals of the interior of the home that also at the same time is changing the price of the home and changing the function of the home. I converted the 3rd car garage to a bedroom and a bathroom. And that means I'm up a bedroom, up a bathroom, down a garage, and I added $35,000 to the price of the house. Doing that dynamically, again, not something you can accomplish if you start today, because today you may have to start with the foundation of systems and data, but over time, as you perfect your madness and you really have a high quality information environment clicking, now you can go do some really cool stuff with it. So that was sort of the end of the 5-year script for us. So there was a sequence, but in terms of starting from scratch with an application stack, it was all at once.
Yes. So Bob, Brandon's talking about it, the entire building life cycle, pre-investment, pre-land investment through warranty and customer experience and that sort of thing. Constellation works with operators at every stage of digital adoption. Which patterns and leadership stand out to you among those who make it work?
Well, I think that just kind of building on some of Brandon's thoughts, it starts with the core foundation, and in our case, in the ERP application, which is basically finance, purchasing, sales, can start with raw land and go through warranty, and getting the entire getting to the point where your organization is sharing data across all departments, and there's a single source of the truth. So I think that starts with it. I think as I was listening to Brandon, what I'm thinking about is the journey, not only from day one, but like what to look like 3 years from now, what to look like 5 years from now, et cetera. And I would suggest to you that Brookfield Residential meets with our team on a weekly basis, and here we are, 8 years later, right? And they're looking for different ways that we can improve our systems to meet their evolving needs. There are many organizations who think of a technology adoption as an event that occurs at a moment in time, and then they're done with it. And the reality is that what we need to do is think about your technology transformation as a never-ending project, right? And so your commitment as an organization is to, let's fundamentally do this step one, and then we're going to revisit those decisions, because I mean, let's be honest, like companies that implemented prior to the housing downturn in the early 2000s, they're very different companies in most cases today than they were then. And if you're just using systems that were set up, you're 5 generations of employees removed from the people who received the initial training, like that's not a formula for success. You should be revisiting the decisions that you made. You should be thinking about and working with your technology partners to ensure that you're improving your use of the system, that you're adding new functionality as the needs of the industry change, et cetera. So I think that's a big piece of it that I would leave with everybody, is this journey is never ending, and your commitment to technology adoption is something that you should be addressing on a regular basis.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's about building an organization and business culture mindset that's wired for adaptability and resilience. And I want to come back to a couple of really good questions that have come through that really sort of align with this challenge. One of them is to avoid the pitfall that Brandon had pointed out. Well, can't the technology plan for a company be built in a scaffolding structure that scales up the purchase and integration, both so that no technology is rolled out without being optimized? And then better to have fewer technology assets, but the assets available run optimally. Could you both comment on that?
Brandon, you start.
That's a tricky balance. It is.
Yeah.
Totally understand the point. Thank you for the question. Totally understand the point. Let's do this thing, and let's do it exceptionally well before we do the next thing. Let's optimize the platform. And completely agree. Some of that strategy and decision making is based on the urgency of the moment. And so for us, we had to do a complete restart of all of our applications. So we didn't have the opportunity to put in place one piece of technology and perfect it and then move on to the next piece of technology. For us, it was more of a scattershot approach. Let's get all this stuff that we know we need in place. Let's be really, we wrote some big checks to get our partners to help us implement quickly. But let's get really good at using the tools in their current condition, how they present themselves. Some are more modern architecture systems and some are older architecture systems, whatever. But whatever they do, they're great databases, they're great platforms, they can build all sorts of product. Let's get really good at using those things, and let's get really rich data coming from them. And then we'll move on to the things that are a little bit more sexy or a little bit more advanced, or that might actually help to optimize a process. I think for us, we didn't want to get stuck in the optimization mode, because sometimes you can never break out of it. It's like, it's never perfect. It's never perfect. It's never perfect. Right. So we keep stuck in that mode where we don't move on to the next thing. Next never actually shows up. And so for us, we wanted to get through quickly and then perfect along the way and move on to super technology when it avails itself to us.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I would also, sorry, John, but I would just say that the danger with kind of, let's just attack one thing like accounting, and then we'll get the rest of the stuff. Then we'll do purchasing, then, and then after that's optimized, we'll do other stuff. Is you leave the rest of the organization managing silos of data that potentially are in conflict with what's in ultimately your system of record. And then simultaneously, you're asking the employees that are in those departments to maintain complex manual processes that are only scalable by adding humans into the mix, to continue to do that while other parts of the organization gain benefits. And so, I think starting with it, if you're implementing an ERP, implement the ERP. And then if you want to layer on, as Brandon said, some other stuff that, that is maybe sexier, visualizers and other things, those things you can kind of build on top of that foundation. But that first set of scaffolding, I think, needs to be pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, I mean, you've got interoperability, and creating a solution to something can create a drag on other parts of the ecosystem. If it's in isolation, it's absolutely understandable. Let me wrap up with another really great question. And this is kind of a good lightning round, a quick response. Do you agree that the question right now for those who are poised to decide to commit and invest is not can we afford it, but rather can we afford not to have it as we enter economic rapids?
Brandon?
Yes. I agree. That's a good way to frame the question. This is a great opportunity. While companies may not have the appetite to invest at this exact moment, but it is a great opportunity to invest so that when the market does behave differently, when we do experience lower interest rates or higher sales velocity, whatever the trigger is for your organization, at some point we want to be more operationally efficient. We want to be better, smarter, faster through systems and data. And so during these times of sluggishness, if you will, it's a good time to invest because you get to be a better operator later when the market is more robust.
Yeah. And I think what we see in the industry is when those times do turn, then operators are like, oh, we're too busy. And so how they scale the business, hire more people.
Right.
As opposed to being more efficient. So the answer is yes. I'm in a complete agreement with Brandon. Now's the time.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, Bob and Brandon, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John, Bob.
Thank you.
Hello, and thank you all so much. Thank you for attending. Thank you to John, Brandon, and Bob today. Today's Thriving Through Transformation in a Tough Market will be emailed to you as a webinar recording. Watch for email announcements for upcoming webinars, including Building Products Efficiency Council at 11 a.m. on Monday, December 8th, and that is Pacific time. Also, save the date for PCBC 2026. Mark your calendars, allocate that funding, and we look forward to seeing you in San Diego, Tuesday through Thursday, July 28th through the 30th. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.